All right, we want to develop the correct strategy in Bingin for property growth. And let's kind of understand a few things first, right? The end goal is to come up with a policy. Okay, what is the guideline? What are we going to do on a day-to-day basis in Bingin in order to get the growth to happen? Okay, so this I think is really important because this is what we can delegate. We can do it ourselves for a while, and then when we finally actually have it work, then this is something that we can delegate. So it gives us a plan. And I think if we have plans, that makes everything run a lot better. All right, but let's go into this topic first, right? Before we get to understanding what the policy should be. What has experience taught us so far? What is working, what is not working? Let's go to Wayana first. What do we know about Bingin, and what do we know about what works and what doesn't work? Babe, you're
You're
muted.
muted. It worked with people when there was no host there, like basically have relationship.
There's a host on site. Okay. Okay. There's a host on site. Relationship with who?
So with the owners, basically we inspect all the time and have connection and
Okay. All right. It works better if there's a host on site and there's a relationship with the owners. But this is only the Balinese owners, right? Because the foreign owners are not on site.
yeah, not on site, but for the owner side, I think before our finance was a mess. It's not smooth. So you remember Bertie and Nicholas come here to settle the payment, right?
Right.
So because the finance was still manual and semi automated, also there was no trigger that knowing if the payment went to the owner yet. So
Okay.
it means wise not that great before. So
Okay.
we are confident from our side, but the payment should be automated. But we didn't know when there was basically payment didn't go through from Airbnb, so they have to find out instead that we have a trigger, so inform them that the payment for A. So actually, is that create a trust issue. I think.
Okay. And this leads to trust issues with owners' money. Okay. All right. So what's working was that there was a host on site. They could make relationships with the Balinese owners, and probably there's also a relationship with guests as well, right? So having a person on site, you can actually develop guests, and then this actually then translates into personalized reviews, right? Mentioning our host team, right? Okay. All right. Right. This is something that we did. Let's see when with Jing and Wayana time, right?
Yes, 101.
Okay. 101 hosting. So we would essentially work inside the villas from about 9, 10 a.m. No, actually it was about 2 p.m., right? To about 8 p.m., right? And then we would meet all guests coming into the properties, right?
Yeah.
And then we would leave messages and notes for all guests arriving after check-in times. And we would inspect the quality of the property before arrival, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we know that works.
Yeah. I think what you call, in this case, I think we have more control about the guests and basically the experience
Right.
in there.
Okay. So if you control the guest experience, then you control the experience, right? You control the branded experience, right?
Yeah.
So that part works. But this also worked in another way. It was 101 business development, right? Because we could find out about new properties any day, right?
Yeah.
Because we worked within the site and we were aware of new construction. And the timing was always perfect because sooner or later we would meet the owner, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the benefit of having somebody on site, right? But it's okay. So what we did was two things. We did the hosting, but we also could do the business development, right? And that's what made it a very good virtuous cycle. Okay, let's go to Nadine. Nadine, how much of this picture do you understand? What's working? What doesn't work in the area?
I think yes, I would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
For the past experience in Bingin, I think Wayana knows better.
Okay.
But the things about hosting, yeah, I heard a lot about that because from the last of board property in Bingin, which is Mujimba,
Mm-hmm.
the problem was as well as it's about host as well.
Okay. All right. So absent host doesn't restore much trust in the management company. Okay. Okay. And then the other thing I think is also the expectations, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So many owners were pitched that BV would provide on-site hosts, accurate financial payouts, and innovative guest solutions, right? So then if the owners have to actually deal with guest problems or finance problems or any of these, then they probably start losing faith. Okay, so in this particular case, we'll defer to Wayana's experience because I think that was covered most of it. All right, so we understand a little bit about what works and what doesn't work, so that part is good. And let's go into the next idea, which is what is visionary leadership, what is non-visionary leadership, and kind of understand that a little bit better. Let's go to Babe, you again. What do you think visionary leadership in the area would look like?
I think there's at the beginning you need to set expectation and clear vision because when people understand the expectations and the vision clearly and but when you do the task correctly will be to gain trust because I think this in Bingin I think mostly about trust issue.
Okay, so because you need to correctly fix the trust. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. Anything else?
I think we need to make a relationship with the new people. So basically, like whatever that now it's been happening with jails, who knows what people are talking about. But I think in Bingin, since we have a good relation with the new owner, I think we need to start from there.
Okay.
So like Tracy, the bamboo house, and Dugong is the partner. Is very well connected people in there. So if we can basically have good relationship and trust, and people will heard like good thing and bad thing, and people will figure out which one it is.
Okay.
And so we can start from that. So yeah, like just talking with Tammy the other day, like, and we basically brainstorming because Bingin is in the area, but how can we like start it again? Maybe not in the area, the old area. So I think we get new territory in the on the club with this help opportunity there. As he said, like there's few building there, so that's why we're planning to expand in the club, and we're thinking to basically just manage the two things from like small person and grow there. So make it like in the beginning just know as many people and also just make it one listing first and to basically to cover up in the area. So to know about Bukit Vista, even the what you call it's not MQL, but I think that's one strategy to basically apa namanya untuk awareness
Hmm.
It's
Okay.
more like on the cliff. Like if like for example like complex have 10 room or 5 room, hey, can we present one of your room, you know, like
Interesting.
connection. So we're thinking like in a lightweight. We started with lightweight first, just to gain the awareness of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Here's something I just noticed on Airbnb. So most of the properties that are available are on the cliff, right? In fact, very few of the properties that are inland are available. It's probably because most of the inland properties are on long-term rentals at the moment. I'm thinking
Yes.
based on what I understand. Okay.
All the inland property is confirmed because last time there was a from HR give me inquiry and asked for fee and you know Kacha like PT Bukit.
Mm-hmm.
They just to update like most of the property full until 15th of December. So
Okay.
after 15th December they're taking daily. So that is the pattern on inland.
Okay. Are booked until the 15th of December. Okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah, because the owner decided that's the only basic until the date that can be long term. After that, is daily. That is the pattern that I see.
Okay. Understood. Okay, so all right, we need to set clear expectation and clear vision. We need to correctly fix the trust, create relationship with new owners, and our current relationships grow. They then get more new relationships. Yeah. Okay. Let's go to Nadine. Nadine, what do you think is visionary leadership and what is not visionary leadership?
Okay, for the visionary leadership, I think for in the future, I think it's important to have retrospective for a particular area for the next business development as well. So we need to have like something like kind of like guideline for a particular area. So like now. I don't have any documentations about Bingin, right? If I want to execute something, I don't know what the history previously. It's probably Wayana and the former business development who knows better about that. So
Okay.
I think we should have that kind of retrospective for this is for Bingin, this is for Canggu, this is for what. So all the history, all the strategy could be documented and could make us easier to decide the next strategy.
Okay. Okay, new areas. Okay, it's important, and then finds new strategy. Okay, all right. What is? Oh, actually, let me go to Wayana. What is not visionary leadership? What are things that we should avoid?
Not clear communication and expectations, so that create gray and assumption. When you have assumption partners, so it means we just say whatever that they thought, but not necessarily that what we are.
Okay.
So misalignment basically.
Okay. Okay. Good. Anything else?
I think for the long term that is important that what you call have a vision for long term. It's not. Oh, this is the one not visionary. No have vision for long term for the owner and what the strategy.
Okay. Okay.
Because owner want to know like for long term like how gonna keep this handle my property, how gonna my property doing in long term, So if we didn't have that, people will doubt like what gonna do with my property.
Okay.
They're gonna doubt it.
Okay. All right. Cool. Nadine, what do you think it is? What is non-visionary leadership?
Execute things without documentations and not. Yes, I think that's not visionary.
Okay.
Leadership.
Okay. All right. Cool. Let me exemplify that. Yeah. So I think that could look like. Okay, let's see. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Execution without documentation, right? So execution without documentation means we get results, but we produce no asset, right? For the result. So there's no way to actually repeat the result, right? So we just get essentially lucky each time, but we don't ever create pathways to scale our ability. Okay, all right, so that's non-visionary leadership. Okay, let's go up to the very top, right? And I'll summarize a few things from what experience has taught us here, okay? So what this experience has taught us is this, right? Owners prefer to not change property managers, right? I think that's a pretty basic. Picking a different property manager, not being there, it's kind of a hassle. Think of it this way. Do you enjoy changing the operating system of your computer? No, right? You generally, like, once you, a lot of people, even if they use a particular phone, like an Android phone, they will stick to using Android because they're just more comfortable with it, right? So in general, we can assume that owners generally prefer not to change property managers. They only do it when there are fundamentally flaws involved, right? So usually there's a breakdown in the trust, okay? There's a breakdown in trust, and they don't feel that you are representing their best interests, right? Not feeling great that their best interests are being represented. Okay, and there's a few ways that this can happen, right? So let's kind of examine all the different ways it can happen. Not keeping to operational obligations, okay? So guests are supposed to be checked in, but they're not. There's some doubt about whether or not the right steps are happening. This kind of creates issues, right? Not keeping to financial transparency and understanding, right? So this is, of course, making sure people get paid on time, making sure they pay correctly, making sure refunds or cancellations, these get routed to the correct people. So pay on time, pay cancellations, and keep accurate accounting. Okay, but this also means a few things. Okay, so operational obligations, and in general, maybe not keeping some sort of relationship, right? So not checking in regularly, not keeping owners invited to sessions, right, where they can express their ideas, and probably not listening, not inviting feedback. Okay. Now, okay, here's one thing we always know. Owners never give warnings. Okay. So as we've seen in the past, there's really no warning. If you want to keep an owner, you'll need to proactively seek out what's not right. Okay? If you proactively ask, hey, have you been satisfied with Bukit Vista service this month, or whatever you ask, then you'll get that feedback. But generally they won't offer this. They'll just make a decision to change. It's just too much trouble, right? It's kind of awkward to have to say these things. So, okay, so we know essentially what we need to avoid, right? We need to avoid any breakdown in the trust. So these are part of the, I would say these are part of the reality issue, right? These are things that we need to actually do. But then there's another set of things that are in the expectation world, right? And these are things that we also need to make sure that we have, right? So one is, does the owner understand the BV mission and vision? I mean, do they really understand it, right? Can they give us examples of what represents the mission vision? Okay. I think this is really, really key. If people don't know what you're really your purpose is, then all kinds of rumors, all kinds of distractions can hijack what you're really trying to do, right? So the very first thing that owners should understand is they should understand the purpose. What is it that we actually aim to do? Can we actually give them examples of it? Can they actually remember these things? Now, babe, you remember, and Nadine might remember, the bad old days of Bukit Vista 3, right? We had people who worked here, people who've been here maybe for a while, but they didn't really understand the vision, mission, and maybe it wasn't even well communicated at that point. So then it would be really easy for distractions to happen. People would get upset about how they were treated. They would think that we were trying to burn people out on purpose. There wasn't any higher purpose. And because there wasn't a higher purpose, it was not very, very easy to navigate and to align a community of employees. Now, we know the same thing could probably be applied to the partners, right? So in order to align the partners, we need to think of how do we drive this idea of our vision and mission constantly so that they clearly understand this, okay? So that's on the expectation side. The other expectation side, I think, is to essentially, I guess, what are the limits of operational success, all right? So what is a bad day look like? What is a good day look like? Now, if we've explained this up front, then they would know, right? But this is also where I think BD needs to know too, right? BD should have the best, worst cases by HAR kind of close by. So you guys would actually know what exactly are the bad days and the good days actually look like. Okay, so this is a little bit of how I'd put a container around what experience has taught us. How do we manage expectations? How do we manage the reality part of what we're doing? Okay, great. So once we have that, then let's dive into the next piece here, which is what visionary leadership looks like and what does non-visionary leadership look like. I think a visionary leadership, it looks like inspirational storytelling, right? And reinforcement of the core values and the mission, vision of the company. Okay, what does that actually mean? So oftentimes when we achieve something, right, we have the same problem inside our company. When we achieve something that is actually on mission, do the owners actually know about it, right? When we achieve something that is on brand, does anybody know about it, right? So this becomes a problem because people don't really understand what it is that you're doing unless you find a way to tell the story in a way that is really persuasive, right? So what can this mean? You need to have some sort of constant communication sort of system, right? And this can be maybe a newsletter. This can be maybe events, right? But you should think of these as also, right? These are your expansion tools. Yes. In a way, PR, it's not PR so much as awareness, Nadine, right? So community leads the funnel for partners. Or actually, no. The partner funnel leads the partner, and awareness actually begins a lot of times with marketing, right? But awareness should also begin with advocacy. Are there any really, really good owner stories that we should be telling rest of the owners, okay? So a lot of times we start awareness with asking new people to join because, hey, look, are you looking for this? Are you looking for that? Are you looking for a particular service? But that, remember, back to the Maslow pyramid, right? If we remember the Maslow pyramid for investors, pyramid chip, okay, where is it? Here it is. Okay, this is the Maslow pyramid for property partners, right? Legacy, relationship, transaction alignment. Now, when you think of like acquiring a new partner, what you really want is you want a person who is entering on a legacy format, right? They are putting their property into Bukit Vista because they want the name of the villa to represent their values. They want their values to be transmitted to the rest of the world. These are the people who actually do things like, have I shown you guys these videos yet? Never Too Small? Here's an example, right? So this is what a legacy type partner would look like. A legacy type, god damn it. Stupid ad. Okay, so legacy partner is a person who's building something for a purpose. Okay, they're building something because they believe in a certain idea. This channel is actually full of really good examples of people who think about legacy. They're building their homes because they want to make impact on the environment. They want to create sustainable, eco-friendly, but also comfortable and inspirational homes. And they've done so by pursuing this idea of how can I make a small space very inspirational? How can I give it a lot of ambiance, a lot of romance, a lot of delight, but without waste, without taking up a lot of space, without damaging the environment, without creating cultural sort of dilution. So these are all actually legacy sort of minded people. But how did this channel, Never Too Small, how did they collect all these people together on their channel? It's because they state their purpose here, right? They state what they're about right here. It is a video channel dedicated to small footprint design and living, featuring award-winning designers and their tiny micro apartment studios and self-contained projects. Okay, by stating that, what you're attracting to your channel, to your community, are people who are focused on that particular idea, right? Okay, so this goes back into what a visionary leadership means, right? Visionary leadership means there is, after all, you're leading by purpose, right? So you're leading by some sort of inspiration about legacy. You're leading also by some sort of relationship, right? You're also leading by transactional value. Not everybody is going to join our community because they believe in environmental benefit, or they believe in sustainable architecture, or they believe in revitalizing the Balinese tourism economy. Of course, they're going to have selfish reasons. They want somebody to manage their property for cheap. That's okay. But if you don't build any narrative on these two levels, then you're never really leading with vision. You're leading just by kind of, grinding it out each single time. Okay? So this is where the storytelling has to start aligning to a certain legacy. What kind of stories do we tell that show that we are legacy minded? We've been here for 12 years already, right? Or at least 12 years, I think. So what kind of stories do we tell people that show that we are thinking about their property's legacy, about their legacy, about how they're going to make impact to Bali in general? And then do we also advertise our relationship? Right? When you went to Chucha, you can see Chucha. I didn't go to Chucha with you guys, but when you guys went to Chucha, they really bring in relationship alignment, right? They bring everybody together, everyone networks, everyone gets to know each other, and then this creates that strong relationship bond that then brings people into the community as well, right? Do we emphasize that? Do we think of ways to connect our partners with our community experts, with our other partners, so that people start creating these relationships, right? This, I think, is also part of this idea of visionary leadership, okay? Yes, babe.
You're muted, Mo.
Sorry. You brought interesting topic in there. So, who's responsible actually to create this kind of? Because I think I think we need to take really more what you call serious in the PR side.
In the storytelling.
It's not just for to get employee, but I think start create an image. What is Bukit Vista? What people understand about Bukit Vista? What the vision of Bukit Vista?
Correct.
From there, when you have that kind of vision, people understand, the vision of Bukit Vista and also like image like about Bukit Vista from people, and people will be basically, we have a beautiful vision actually. So I think the storytelling can be better. But at the moment, I don't know who's planning to do what next.
Let's set it up. Let's set this up, right? So we have step one, right? This is our guidelines now. Now we can think about how do we actually implement a certain system like this. So I think step one is find your purpose, right? And find your purpose. Our purpose is to inspire, delight through hospitality innovations that positively transform guests, partners, and employees, right? Okay, that's the first step. Step 2 is to find the stories that support the purpose, okay? Now, this is where you start connecting things, okay? You can start asking, all right, what have been the most recent 5 innovations we've created in the last month, okay? And then the second question is, how has this positively transformed Postran, yeah?
I think guideline needs to be written not in a short.
Okay, guests, partners, and employees, okay? Okay, how is this actually positively transformed? Let's think of an example, okay? Let's think of an example that might have actually done some good. Maybe BVGo, okay? BVGo is a wonderful innovation. It's available on the App Store. It's available in all kinds of places, but have we actually collected a story of where BVGo has positively transformed a partner?
Yeah, how we start, like what we struggle with, why we create this, right?
That tells it from your perspective, right? It doesn't tell it from the partner's perspective. Yes, you need to find out what partner is using BVGo, what partner has been inspired by BVGo, and what partner is actually benefiting from it. Because this then exemplifies your mission, okay? And then this is then something that you can use to advertise with, right? Bukit Vista creates innovations to make partner lives easier. This is our partner. His name is G'day. G'day used to be very, very confused about finance, about guest check-ins, about how much money he was making, and he would need to contact our team regularly. But this was a problem because our team has office hours, and G'day sometimes wanted to actually figure out what was happening with his property after office hours. This resulted in many frustrations and communication slowdown. After we invented BVGo, G'day downloaded it from the App Store. Within minutes, he set it up, he was on the go, and every time there's a transaction now, he knows how much it's for, he knows which channel it's coming from, he knows when his next guest is checking in, and he knows what his last review is. And this happens not just for Airbnb, but for all the 3, 4, 5 platforms where Bukit Vista gets his guests. In other words, G'day now is independent. He can find out his own information whenever he wants, whenever he wants, whoever he wants to find out about, right? It's like anytime, anywhere, anybody, right? So that represents inspired delight, right? So that kind of story is a story that needs to be told, right? So that's, I think, the second step is we need to actually know what stories to do it. Step 3 is where we need to choose our distribution channels for these stories, right?
Who will discover, who created content, who gonna distribute, who gonna inspect.
Right, okay. So then this is actually up here, right? So who will, we I guess we don't know, who will write these stories? Okay, who will discuss?
Just who discover, like which owner will be.
Right. It seems right now it should probably be community managers, right? Community managers are the ones that actually maintain the relationship. So these stories should actually come from them through interviews, through communications. And this goes back up to this part, right? So remember, if we are exploring and understanding our partners, then we are keeping a relationship with them, right? So that solves that potential problem too as well. By seeking the story, we are also creating that relationship. Like with Pot Freddy, we could frame whatever we had with Pot Freddy as a potential story, okay? So once we have the story, then we have to choose how we want to distribute the story, right? And then we need to inventory our channels, okay? So we can distribute our stories through WhatsApp groups, we can story, I don't know, maybe through email, maybe through BVGo, right? Maybe through events, etc., right? So we really need to actually understand where these channels go. And then we need to understand the positives and negatives of each channel, in terms of, let's say, impact, speed, and virality, okay? So each particular channel will have different amounts of impact. If you talk to somebody, that might have better impact than if you WhatsApp them, right? If you WhatsApp them, that might be faster than trying to arrange a meeting, right? If you WhatsApp them, it also maybe can be transmitted virally more quickly. They can share your message to somebody else, right? Whereas a conversation is not very shareable, right? So we need to also understand this in terms of how it goes out, okay? All right, step 4. Once we have distributions, then we need to set up timing, right? How often, when, and when not, right? To distribute these particular messages, right? And also we should probably set up inspection points, right? Oh, that's step 5.
Yeah.
Inspection points. Are we doing this correctly, right? Meaning, is the activity at a good pace, and is the activity creating results? Okay.
I have a question.
Right.
We have like guests, partners, and employees. They have to inspire, right? So do we have like 3 different channels about each channel should be consistent? What I understand it effective marketing. What I see like the pattern, everything be consistent. People are, oh I see the pattern, I see, right? So if we are like put it in one channel, for example Facebook for partner, and I'm gonna put guests now, and we're gonna employ. Do you think that create confusion, or what is?
No. Okay, very good. So this is where you need to understand the impact of your channel, right? So this particular discussion is about the channel that goes to, let's say, partners, okay? So we need to understand the kind of content that should be in a partnership channel. So, okay, let's go into the content, right? Which is the stories, right? When we're talking about this, we're probably talking about maybe, it could be all 3, right? But it just has to be framed in a way that makes sense. Let's go into this story. What should be the content of such a story? It has to be written from the partner perspective, right? So I think we need a story arc, okay? You need to write a story arc in a way that makes the partner feel this could be them, right? Okay, so it always begins, where did the partner begin, right? What was the innovation that they experienced, okay? And within that story, how did they first feel, right? Were they scared? Were they nervous? Did they really not want to accept this new idea? What was involved in the transition to adoption, right? What were the high and low points in the story, okay? And then finally, what was the result, okay? Who was transformed, all right? What did that feel like, okay? Here, I'll give you an example. Let's say, for example, back to Mr. G'day with BV Go, okay? So Mr. G'day at the very beginning was a new property owner. He had no education about property management. He had no idea. He felt nervous most of the time. Why did he feel nervous? Because he needed information. He needed information about when his guests were checking in. He needed information how much he was getting paid. And he couldn't get this information quickly, and it made him feel nervous. Why? Because he's paying all this real money to keep his operation and his staff employed, and all these bills are going out, but what's coming in is not very certain. So he first approached Bukit Vista with this intention of clarifying his problems. Bukit Vista offered to put in community managers, BV Go, and drive his revenues using data science so that he might actually grow. Well, over the course of 6 months, what Mr. G'day experienced with this, he was able to reduce his anxiety because BV Go essentially allowed him to have access to all his most vital information at any point, any given time, with the click of a button. his community managers guided him on strategy. And so Mr. Gade realized that his property was positioned too much for short-term rentals. But the market was actually looking for longer-term rentals. And this was confirmed by the data science team that had done studies on hundreds of guests and figured out that the most in demand was longer-term rentals. And as a result, the community managers were able to persuade Mr. Gade to put in facilities such as mini fridges, work desks, bedside lighting, and upgrade his internet to 100 Mbps. And as a result of that, Mr. Gade, after a month, had seen 200% increase in the number of guests. His revenue rose by 4 times, and now he's got 50 reviews, right, that say he is a top 4.87 star property, right? Mr. Gade now feels very relaxed. He doesn't spend too much time working on his operations because it's pretty much automated at this point. He doesn't need an accountant. He doesn't need a data science person. He doesn't need a marketing person. Bukit Vista takes care of all that for him. And as a result, Mr. Gade has chosen to become friends with one of his guests, and they are going to go and do this when Mr. Gade goes to visit the home country of his guest. As a result, Mr. Gade has also developed a really great relationship with one of our interns who has taken Mr. Gade's case and used it as a business case to present at one of the major universities in Indonesia, right? So whose lives was transformed? Mr. Gade's life was transformed, his guests' lives were transformed, and he even transformed an employee's life, right? So that's how you kind of like would create that sort of story. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. So those are the kind of stories that then we tell. Those are the kind of stories that you tell to new partners, right? Because that story is so rich. It has so many different components that a new partner would identify with. It has a relationship component. Mr. Gade now has relationship with guests. He has a relationship with our employees. And if you want to add, Mr. Gade is now often, let's say, a speaker at our community gatherings where he shares his transformation stories and enables other new property owners to also benefit from entering the technology age, right? And without much, and now he has a relationship with the community. So 3. All right, Mr. Gade's property now has legacy, right? It's 4.9 stars. He's at the top of the platform. Everybody just comes to him, and he has time to work on traveling and doing other things, right? So more legacy minded. So that's what a rich story should have. And you're right. Somebody needs to write these stories, right? Somebody needs to come and build what this case is. And who do you think right now, Nadine, is the best person to write these stories?
To discover the stories, we need to work together with the community managers.
Mm-hmm.
But to frame, to construct the story, how the story could be easily understood and everything, how we frame it, I think we should work together with PR.
Okay. PR doesn't have, PR is just a form of awareness, everybody, right? PR, what they can do is this, okay? PR can help you get published in magazines, in trade papers, get you access to universities where you get that story out, right? But the story itself still has to come from somebody who is good at storytelling, who can actually compact it together. PR is just like fuel after the fire has been established. They can get your fire bigger, but they cannot create that fire for you in the first place. You need a spark to come from
Content
something.
and marketing.
Maybe content and marketing, but look, don't forget, you have good people in community. Asa and Ross are both very good storytellers, story writers, right? Especially Ross. I think she has a lot of talent for really understanding the story and getting the story out there, right? You can rely on Ross to give her some template, right? She just needs to have a template like, okay, what was the innovation they experienced? How did they first feel? What was involved? Who was transformed? What did it feel like? What was, these are the components that are there. Most stories are going to be like the story I just told you, right? The partner was feeling this way, feeling that, and then they experienced Bukit Vista, and that was the bridge, and now they feel like this, and that's the conclusion, right? So beginning, sad, Bukit Vista, bridge, and then after, great, right? Everything is all great now. So we just need to write stories that reflect that, but we need to be very specific about focusing on the detail, right? Because it's the detail that gets people to understand. You need to have the detail about what relationship was transformed. Did they transform an employee? Did they transform guests? Did they struggle with the innovation at first? And what are the truths and what are the pros and cons? Okay. All right. So this is. Oh yes, Nadine.
Yes, I think then because I think a good to be a good storyteller is one of the qualification for the PR team.
Okay.
Yes, I think that's the essence of having a PR in the company. Like to actually deliver the story in a very unique way. So that's why PR has a PR campaign to specific audience, right?
Okay.
So that's one of the qualification of PR team. But
Okay.
actually, then the fact actually we have already a lot of good storyteller in BG right now to build a strong PR team actually.
Correct. Now, don't get too attached to a particular chapter needing to do this or that, right? Oh, we're almost out of time. We're actually out of time, but I'll just continue real quick. We're going to have another session. We didn't get a chance to actually write the guidelines today, but we at least started forming a vision, right? So we have kind of like this vision now, and we have a sketch on how we can get to that vision. But here's a few things we need to understand. PR is a chapter of people, right? But the skills they use is a skill that should be common amongst business development, amongst people who are hospitality and everything else. It's persuasive storytelling. It's part of sales and persuasion, but it's this way of persuading using a third-party story, right? A lot of the times we persuade using tactics, but we don't persuade using stories. The most advanced negotiators, they generally use stories to persuade other people, right? They tell you a story about, your case kind of reminds me of when I had this happen to me one time. There was a person just like you who came to my office and they had the exact same problem you did. And during the course of a relationship, we were able to fix their problem plus other problems that they didn't see that they had. And as a result, now, a year later, this person is doing this and they are 10 times better than when I first met them. That is generally the story that a lot of people will tell regarding why you should come to me to get advice, to buy my services, to do whatever. It's generally that is the arc. How you tell it is, of course, where the details come in, where you become persuasive, okay? So this is the next level, everyone, of sales and persuasion, right? The storytelling part. And this is also not. It's more like a strategy now, right? Because once you have the story, you can give it to many people, and they tell the story. And your owners, they tell the story, and they draw in other people, right? You don't have to even do too much. Owners will tell the story to other people, and then that will transmit back. So that's kind of like the world we're going into. But let's do this, Nadine. Can we schedule a time, let's say on Thursday, okay? And we'll review this particular strategy, and we'll write in the guidelines, okay? We'll write in, what is it the story that we need to tell in Bingin, right? How do we make the story authentic? Okay, we need a real story. We need to tell maybe the story of Elliot, how he transformed his property over the course of a few months. It's doing much better now, right? And we need to tell the story of, and we need to think about what story we want to actually tell when we first have a new partner, right? How do we want to actually give this partner a journey so that this story is actually something inspirational? It can give us a vision. And once we have that vision, everything becomes easier, right? Because we already know what transformation looks like. We know what is the purpose of our innovations, okay? So for today, it's enough, but let's try to finalize this on Thursday, and we'll have a guideline, right? What is the story we're gonna tell? I can write the story, perhaps, right? I'll be your first story writer, but what you guys as business developers need to see is you need to start feeling the story, all right? You need to start looking for the evidences of what makes this story real. And when the story is real, it can be verified through multiple viewpoints, then you have something that is visionary leadership. You don't need to sell so much. Your brand sells, right? Your story sells, and it's proven. So that makes everything much easier. In a smaller community like Bingin, it's very simple to do that. Okay. All right.
I have question before.
Yeah.
Before we close it. Okay. I think this one is great or interesting.